I am super excited right now to share an unboxing of this package from a company that's making some great nature journaling supplies. And if you know me, you probably know from seeing other episodes of the Nature Journal show that I'm very particular about the nature journaling supplies that I use, and I've been using the same kit for many, many years. So right now I'm doing a little bit of experimentation because I've seen that many of my viewers and many people in the nature journaling community have been using supplies from this company. And so I want to just make sure that I can look at those, know a little bit about them, and see if they can work for me. So right now I'm going to open up this box and show you what I'm talking about. Also, just realized I had the different microphone on, so putting that on now. So I'm going to open this package right now and see what's inside of it, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm going to switch to my document camera for that. So this package just came, and I'm super excited to see what is inside. So let me open this. Actually, this knife might not be big enough. Here we go. That's more like it. Actually, no, this is not really the right one either. There we go. That's better. So this package just came, and I am really excited to see what's inside and test it out in my nature journaling kit. You might have gotten a hint if you could read that right there. This is from a company, from someone that I recently interviewed. So that is a huge hint, and I'll post a link. Soon. Oh, I see that people are seeing an error message. Not sure what that means. I'm not seeing anything on my end. So nicely packaged here, some informational stuff. Now you can see who we're talking about. This is from arttoolkit.com. This is Maria Coriel Martin's company, and they did send me a free watercolor palette after I interviewed her on the show. But now I decided I should order one of their namesake kits. This is one of the art toolkits, and I'll show you their page in a second, that is used by a lot of people in the nature journaling community. I've never tried one, so I'm really looking forward to it because this is just the palette. So I chose a kit that my palette would fit into. So hopefully everybody is has gotten that figured out and can see the video now. So this is the kit right here, and this is something extra that I ordered. This is a spray bottle. It's even smaller than I realized. So this is for spraying your watercolor. I guess you could mist yourself as well, if you need to mist yourself. And really cool, very small mister. Nice information about it. It's very cool. And so the nuts and bolts of the kit are the Moleskine sketchbook. So included is a watercolor sketchbook. I should open that up here without cutting anything essential. And I usually, you know how fixated I am on the sketchbook that I use right now, but in the name of experimentation and trying something new, I will use this out. It looks like it's 200 GSM, which is heavier paper than what I normally use in my Stillman and Byrne sketchbook, but this is the watercolor sketchbook, watercolor album from Moleskine, and this came with that kit. I usually throw away all of this weird stuff that the Moleskine includes. I don't really think it's that useful usually. Really, for drawing circles, I don't know. It is a slight, I thought it was going to be a vertical format, portrait format, but it looks like it's horizontal. This is definitely way heavier paper than I use. And you can see here that it has quite a bit of tooth as well. Can you see that tooth? So this is definitely different than what I'm used to. And this is going to be really unfamiliar for me. Just right off the bat, if you've seen my video about how to choose a sketchbook for nature journaling, I usually don't recommend this much tooth because for writing notes, it's usually hard. So let's just do a test right here. I kind of don't want to mess up the paper right away. It's easy to get precious with a new sketchbook, but I just want to do a test of this this texture paper real quick because usually this much tooth. Let's see what the thing actually said. It said for the tooth, let's see what it says. It's 200 GSM, which is 135 pounds in this case. And it's saying that it is cold pressed on both sides of the paper. So that's nice that each side of the paper can be used. However, sometimes this much texture makes it hard to write notes. I'm not noticing that being a problem right now. So I'm noticing my lines are working out just fine on this. So maybe that won't be an issue with this texture. So we'll just have to find out. But so far it looks okay. GSM means grams per square meter, I believe. So the reason why I like GSM as a measurement compared to pounds is when you're talking about paper, these if it's measured in pounds, it's relative to like the size of the paper and it's variable between papers. So it's actually really confusing. Whereas GSM is standardized across paper regardless of the size, I believe. So one is metric and one isn't metric, but the metric one seems to be more standardized. Shoot, it looks like some people are having issues watching the show. I'm really sorry. I have no idea what's going on with the technical difficulties. That must be something on YouTube, on the YouTube side. So anyways, that is the sketchbook that came with this kit. I'm excited to play with that, even though that's not my normal size. We will see if this is really convenient, then that's great. So a couple other things that are going to be an experiment and sort of new for me is the pen that comes with it. So it's a Sharpie marker. I don't think I'm actually going to use this. It's a fine point pen. You can order these toolkits. I'll show you in a bit with other stuff. So I'm going to write here that this is Fude Demonin is the pen that I used. And this is the Sharpie. This is actually working kind of nice. So you can see here, this is a felt tip pen that came with the kit. It's a Sharpie sort of fine liner. Obviously, it doesn't put out as much ink and it's not as beautiful as that carbon ink coming out of my Fude Demonin, but the ink is still pretty good. And this pen seems like it would be great for a lot of people. Not necessarily my preference. It's very similar to a micron. I usually don't use these. And then it comes with, of course, a water brush. And in this case, it's the medium. So another thing that I pretty much never use, I always use the large. You can see the comparison side by side there. There's also a fine by Pentel, but this looks like the medium to me. And what else is in this kit? So I really love how it comes with binder clips. I don't normally use this size. I use the large size. This size right here is always in my kit, but this is the one that comes with the art toolkit. So that is cool. And I learned that you can use this for holding the palette on. So it comes with those, and it comes with a clear ruler, which of course is useful for measuring things. But I just learned at Wild Wonder that you can use this for framing your landscape details as well. So that is really exciting. Then this right here is not for doing heroin. This is actually just for putting water into your water brush. Maybe YouTube will not like it that I use that word. Maybe that was a bad idea. But this is an easier way to, maybe you could use this to, suck water out of your water bottle if that's all you have, and without wasting very much, put it into your water brush. I usually just try to pour straight into my water brush reservoir, and sometimes that's annoying. I have also tried putting the water in my mouth from my water bottle and then putting it into here. That is not a good idea either, because what I've noticed is that if you get your saliva in here, it starts to clog up the water brush more quickly. So luckily I tested those things out so you don't have to try them. And this whole thing here is I believe this is a type of nylon, and it feels really sturdy. So that seems good. Let's test out this zipper a little bit. I'm kind of picky about zippers. It doesn't close completely on the edges, but the zipper seems really good, and it has these two loops here, so you could attach like a carabiner or something like that. I don't need this fancy little thing on here anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. That is unnecessary for me and is kind of getting in the way. So take that off. So this kit seems pretty cool. This is the black one. They do come in other colors, so you can actually choose other colors. And this is the mini moleskin that fits into this one. Whoops, my little cap came off of this thing. And I ordered this separately. So this is their micro little water sprayer. So I guess I could test that out now, but I'll have to fill that up with water. And it looks like that will fit in one of these extra pockets here, no problem. I could probably fit like a measuring tape in one of these. So I could fit my little measuring tape in here, or maybe a magnifying glass or something like that would fit. And here is my palette that I bought earlier. So this is the folio palette that they make. Actually, no, I didn't buy this one. They sent this one to me for free to try out. And then I bought this whole piece. So this is the folio. So this is actually the biggest one that they make. And this easily will fit in across from, it might even fit in the same pocket as the moleskin. So there's quite a bit of room in here. If I wanted to, I could fit 2 sketchbooks. Oh, look at this. There's a little insert here with some information about sketching with a focus on landscapitos. You can see Maria Coriel Martin definitely does a lot of landscapitos. So all the information here is basically about watercolor and framing of landscapes. So not very much in terms of like nature journaling specific. So you can kind of see here that the audience is focused on this product is sort of focused on people who are doing more landscape painting, not necessarily nature journaling. However, I do know that there are quite a few nature journalers who use these products. So I'm excited to test this out. I think this would be good. Let's see how it closes now. It looks like it's a little bit of a scrunch, partly maybe because of this being inside of here. It's a little bit of a scrunch. Oh yeah, I can see that's crashing in there. So I'm just gonna move that. Oh, you know, that might even work better right there. It's loose, but, or here. So it's a little bit of a scrunch, but definitely closes. And this would probably fit into my pocket. So, I mean, maybe not my pocket, but I'll show you right now on the regular camera where I can stick this in my wardrobe. But first, I'm gonna drink some water. So here is the size relative to a person's head. It is, and this is not their smallest kit. This, I believe, on their website is called the like the medium or maybe even the large. And I'll show you their website in a moment. Yeah, this is considered the large. So you can see that compared to me, it's not that big. This probably would fit like in a jacket pocket or a purse very easily. I'll show you in comparison my current kit. So my current nature journaling kit is this big. This is a Patagonia bag that is no longer being produced, unfortunately. We'll see if someday in the future maybe we can change that. But this is my current kit. I carry water bottle in here and everything. And it is a shoulder bag, which is really useful. And in comparison, this is the Art Toolkit bag. So it doesn't have a way that you could carry this independently unless, for example, maybe you tied string to here and put it over your shoulder, or you could fit it into your purse. I think one of the things I'm going to try is using this in more extreme situations where I don't want to carry this entire bag. I have heard of several people who are doing nature journaling jogs or nature journaling in other situations where they don't necessarily want to carry a full-on pack. So this could be a good option for those people. I like it quite a bit, and from what I've seen so far, and I have been testing out this watercolor palette. You might have seen my video on Instagram where I drank a margarita, or I tried to drink a margarita in the garden while using this watercolor palette to paint a landscape. I was so busy painting that I hardly drank any of the margarita, but I did test out this palette, and a lot of the colors that I'm using are the same from the palette that I've been using for many years, which is the John Muir Laws palette. So a lot of these colors are from Daniel Smith. I did add some other ones, mostly from the company Rubiev, that makes really, really fancy sort of Renaissance old school style watercolors. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to break in a new palette. I'm not going to break in this kit right now. I'm going to save that for the field and make a video about that in the future. But I'm going to show you a couple strategies that you can use when you're testing out a new watercolor palette, whether it's one from arttoolkit.com or any other one. I will show you that. One thing I should point out right now is that there are some discount codes to use at arttoolkit.com. They gave us one especially for people who watch the show, but unfortunately that one expired in July. However, I do want to point out that everybody who went to the Wild Wonder Conference, if you participated in the Wild Wonder Conference, you can still get a 15% off discount code at arttoolkit.com for buying this or buying any of their other products by using the code Wild Wonder, all caps, no spaces, before December 31st. So if you didn't make it in time to use the Marley 15 code that Maria gave us a couple weeks ago, and you went to Wild Wonder, you can still use that code that I just gave you to get a 15% off discount. And the other crazy thing is that they also offer a 15% discount all of the time if you are a student in high school or college, or if you are an educator. So if you're an educator, you can just send them an email and they'll give you a 15% discount any time of year, whether you went to Wild Wonder or you did not. So right now I'm going to switch back to my document camera and I'm going to show you some ways to test out a new watercolor palette, whether it's this one from Art Toolkit or another one. I will show you right now. And we're going to do a couple little watercolor exercises. So if you have a new watercolor palette with you, you could do this along with us. So there's definitely a spectrum in terms of how type A you can be in your nature journaling versus how sort of relaxed or spontaneous. However, when it comes to testing a new watercolor palette, I recommend you be a little more type A. If you just squirt a bunch of watercolor into a new palette and don't really keep track of which color is which, you might end up sort of losing some of the important information. So I highly recommend that you keep notes and you create at the very least a basic map where you abbreviate the different colors. Over here, I have all of the abbreviations written out, but most of these, I recommend that you learn all of the colors in your palette or your palettes, if you have more than one, by abbreviation. That way, when you're nature journaling, let me see if I have any examples. I might not have any examples in this, but when you're nature journaling, you can put little notes next to a painting of what color you used, and that just makes it a little bit more reproducible. Because what it comes down to is there's so many possibilities in combining these, even though there's only 21 colors here. 21 times 21 is a very big number. Plus, if you start doing a combination that is more than 2 colors, you start getting to a point where it's a lot of numbers. And that means you can't really hope to remember all of that. And I will go into that a little bit more. But right here, I have basically 21 lines where I'm going to do little not swatches exactly, but test strips for my color. But first, even before I do that, I'm going to give a little bit of love to the audience and look over here at the chat, because I have been so focused that I haven't really been looking at the chat. So let me go all the way up to the top and give a shout out to, I see Angie's here, Jean is here, and Ivea have been here since the beginning. All 3 of them are patrons on my Patreon. Thank you so much. And the Patreon is really the main thing that makes the Nature Journal show financially possible right now. So thanks to all of them. I also see, scrolling down, Cindy joining in, and Eli joined in. Eli is also a Patreon patron. Thanks for joining in. I see that people were having issues with the connection. Terry is joined in. And Dawn is here. Dawn is also a Patreon patron. And someone from Facebook is here whose name I can't read because joining on Facebook, you can't always see the name. Zephy is here. Hi, Zephy. Zephy's also a Patreon patron. Lori is here and has some tips about maybe Google Chrome is a better way to watch the video. Thanks for joining in, Lori, and thanks for your contribution. Ivea has several comments about my folding door and the blue in the palette. Very great. Well, thanks everybody for joining in. And for those who are watching this as a recorded version, I hope you learned something about Art Toolkit from the recorded version. So let me answer Ivea's question first. She asked what the blue is above the buff titanium, and it is, I believe it is manganese blue hue. So this is the blue. If you're at the Wild Wonder conference, this is one of the blues that Beth Ann recommended for sky paintings, and it is one of the blues in the John Muir Laws kit. It is the one I usually use for painting skies. If you saw my landscape painting in the garden the other day, that is the blue. I believe that is the blue that I used here in the sky on both of these. And I think you can lift manganese blue hue. I think it's non-staining, but it's a nice pale blue. So thanks to everyone who's joining in. And right now I'm going to do these test strips. And this is something I recommend you do when you try a new nature journal. I need to get all these knives out of the way. I still have all of these knives here from the unboxing. So now I'm going to test out all of the colors in this kit on little strips. And the reason why the strips work well is because you can show the pigment with varying amounts of water. So this is sort of the bare minimum when you get a new palette that I would recommend you do. More advanced would be to do crosses. But if you do crosses, that can take a very, very long time and is not as necessary. In this case, for each cross, there is a slightly more watered down version. But this is one of the most ambitious art endeavors I have ever taken on. And this is for my other watercolor palette, the John Muir Laws palette, and is all of the crosses possible. There's almost 1,000. So I don't suggest you take that on when you get a new watercolor palette, but doing these strips is way more practical. So I'm going to start with yellow. I recommend a lot of times with color, starting with yellow. It is the palest color in terms of value, and it often makes sense to start with it. So what I'm going to do is I have my paper towel nearby to clean my brush easily, and I'm just going to go in to my yellow, make sure my brush is clean, of course, and this is Hansa Yellow Light, and I'm basically just going to do a strip here. I can't remember if I have to use the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Shoot, I think I started counting here. Wait, let me do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, I start here. So Hansa Yellow Light. And what I recommend you do is start with a pretty, if you can, a pretty strong version of it like that. And what I'm actually going to do is I am going to clean my brush off just a tad on a clean paper towel. And then I'm going to, so I'm basically adding more white. I'm diluting it because with watercolor, the white comes from the paper. So as I go this way, you can see how it's getting lighter. You can be varying degrees of precise with this. What I have to be careful of is that my next one doesn't touch that top one. So what I should have done is I should have probably kept it sort of more within the bounds there. And so my next one, I'm going to do quinacridone Sienna, which is right here. Can make sure my brush is totally clean. Get a nice, healthy serving of quinacridone Sienna. I see that Recovering Soul just joined in. Oh, Dawn tried doing the big cross mixing chart and gave up. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It takes forever. I ate so much chocolate while I was doing that one. Okay, so I'm going to start there, but that's really strong. So I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit and then come back in and try to just get sort of like a graded wash. And this will give me an idea of what that color looks like at almost full strength and then what that color looks like diluted. This is way faster than doing the crosses. So my next color is going to be this Nicosia Green Earth. And this is from that company I was just mentioning. Rublev. I got really lucky to go visit this company. Oh, that's Daniel Smith underneath. I got really lucky to visit this company where they're making their pigments with John Muir Laws, and these are their pigments, which is really cool. You can see here they do a variety of tests, including how it looks over something black. That tests the opacity, and also whether it lifts. So these charts are super useful if you ever get one of these for the colors that you work with. Definitely keep that. And they're a small company. They make a lot of oil paints. They're more famous for their oil paints. Their oil paints are often used by restorationists who are restoring art and trying to use the traditional materials. I'm going to eat a little candy while I'm talking. Hopefully that won't mess up the way I sound. Can you still hear me? Okay, next color is this Nicosia Green Earth right here. And this Rublev company, all of their colors are single pigment that are dug up from the ground somewhere. And it was really amazing to visit their site where they're grinding up the rocks and making these pigments. Very, very interesting. So this is the Nicosia Green Earth. It looks rather opaque, almost chalky, and it looks like I need quite a bit of it to get a strong color here. Even more advanced would be to take written notes as you do this about how each color sort of behaves. I'm noticing this color is not behaving the way I would expect. Do you see that? Do you see what I'm talking about? It's not very strong and it's kind of goopy. So it makes it hard to create an even wash. Look at that. Not super stoked on that color. That was a new color that I had and I put into this palette to test it out. But I would say next time I would remove that. Not worth the space. I'd rather have more space for some of the colors that I already know and love. So I'm going to make a note next to this one up here of sort of just a frowny face. I'm not going to get rid of it right away. Maybe it will have its uses when I'm nature journaling in the field, but so far I'm not really that impressed. Next color, tried and true. This is, if you remember the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, you probably had some clothing that had this color. I know I did. I think I had a shirt with dinosaurs riding on skateboards. And the dinosaurs riding on skateboards definitely had this color. So this is phthalo yellow green. It's a very saturated, some people would use the word neon type of green. I do use it a lot diluted or mixed into other greens if you need to brighten them up. Sometimes you actually do see this color in nature, but it is quite neon. But you combine this with quinacridone pink or quinacridone magenta that I'm going to show you in a little bit, and it's a beautiful, beautiful early 90s, late 80s kind of thing going on there when you combine those two colors. I love it. Next, we're going to keep going here, and we're going to go to Roman Black. So this is new. This is from Rublev. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Wait, no, I need to do... I missed one on here. I think I need to do this yellow ochre. For some reason, I'm noticing I missed one here. So here you can see this is a redundance in my system. I have the names written out here and the names written out here, and I have the palette in front of me. So what I'm noticing is that I almost missed one, but when I look here, I can see it, and it's the BRYO. So I know there's two yellow ochres in this palette that I put together. So it is Blue Ridge Yellow Ochre. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that so I don't forget it. It's supposed to be in here, Blue Ridge Yellow Ochre. I don't have any yellow ochre in my John Muir Laws palette, so this is kind of a new pigment for me. You can see it right there is pretty natural sort of looking. It looks like a lot of California right now is this color, so that could be good for me. A good look for me. Oh wait, I think I need to do it here actually. I can't spend too much time experimenting with this new palette because my girlfriend is actually cooking me dinner tonight, and I'm going to be going and eating dinner with her. So I could easily get distracted by testing out these new colors and then go outside. Going outside and doing some of the types of nature journaling you like are also a good way to test out a new palette or a new kit. So I'll make time for that later. Notice how this one I said I didn't like. Notice how uneven it is. Whereas like this one, there you don't see the brush strokes. In this one, you can very clearly see the brush strokes. That might be partly myself, and that could be partly the pigment. I just noticed something in the comments that I want to highlight. I love this idea. Is a recovering soul got here a little bit late. The video had already started, and they watched at 2x speed to catch up to where we are now. That is a really great pro tip. Maybe listening to my voice in 2x speed might be a little bit crazy sometimes, but a good way to catch up and not miss out on anything. Oh, Dawn has a great question. Yes, you could, if you decided you didn't like a color, you could just clean that pan and put a new color. But one of the cool things that makes these kits Modular is that you can actually, these are all magnetic. So I can actually take these out completely, and you can see that space there, and I could fill in a new one, and I could save, maybe I want to use that one for something else, and I could put a different, a little pan in there. Really good question, Dawn. That is something that's very different from the watercolor kit from John Muir Laws that I'm used to. All right, so I got all mine on here, so I'm going to go to the next page. And while I'm doing this, I have this in front of me, so that is really helpful if you have that. If you've seen on my wall behind me, I have the Daniel Smith colors up there now. So let me just show you that really quickly. But most of these companies have these charts. So if you can get one of these from the company, it's super useful. And what I've done with my Daniel Smith one is I've circled all of the colors that I have in my palette. This is the John Muir Laws palette. So you can see some of them are circled, and those are the ones that are in my palette and that I want to know. And up here, I have also circled the information that I'm trying to learn. So in particular, the staining, which of these colors is staining and which ones are not. The test strips on here do not show that, whereas on the Rublev, the test strip shows that. See that pale strip there in the middle of each color? That is showing you what happens if you take a wet brush and put it down on the watercolor and try to lift it up. So some watercolor, you might have more experience of this with your clothing, that certain things, when they get into your clothing, they stain. Other things, as soon as you put a little bit of moisture on, it comes right out. So watercolor is like that as well. Some pigments are staining and some are not. And learning which ones are staining and which ones are not is really useful, because sometimes if you come in and do a second wash, it's technically called a glaze on top of another layer of color, that previous color might come up and mix in and get all weird. That is one instance where staining versus non-staining is important. The other instance is if you're trying to do clouds. So you could paint an entire sky blue, and if it's a non-staining blue, you could come back with a watercolor brush with just water, no color, and wet a little spot where you want to make a cloud, and then you can take a paper towel and pick that color up, lift that color up, and it's really nice. Really useful. So knowing which one is which is awesome, and I love how on this watercolor chart they show you that. You can see the little strip, and some of these colors you can see that the color lifted out, and some of them it doesn't. Like look at this, which one is it there? Look at this alizarin crimson right here. That alizarin crimson does not lift out. That is a staining color. See, they tried, but it's still quite a bit of pink. Whereas look at this Italian brown ochre. See how that's almost perfectly white in that strip there? That means that one is non-staining. And that is really, really important to know. And it's one of the things that I haven't really memorized in my John Muir Laws palette, which are the ones that are staining and which ones aren't. So I want to get better at that. So we're all always learning, even though right now I'm sort of in a teacherly role. There's still a lot of things that I'm learning. So I'm going to switch back to my document camera and keep going with this, because I do have a dinner date tonight, remember? Okay, so cleaning my brush again, of course. Starting with a clean brush is especially important when you're doing these sort of more pale colors. But right now, I am doing Roman black. So black is a controversial color in watercolors and in art in general. And some artists and art teachers in particular like to tell people never use black. I think I actually put this one down here in the mixing area. However, this seems to be a black that has kind of more character to it and more variation to it. And it's actually not super, it looks, compared to the neutral tint that I use from Daniel Smith, this looks less neutral, has more going on. It also doesn't look very, none of these Rublev colors so far look extremely dark value to me. They all look quite light, actually. Look how easy it is to start getting this down to a lighter value. And I would call this a warm black. So it's leaning more towards the reds than towards the blues. Almost reminds me of some of the colors in my Daniel Smith that are like brown, almost kind of like Bloodstone Genuine. Good questions from Cindy and Recovering Soul. I probably will put abbreviations down here, but you know, it could be sort of like flashcards, Cindy. So if I have, you know, the colors all here and I'm trying to learn where they are in my palette, that's the most important thing. So that when I'm nature journaling, because when I'm nature journaling in the field, this is what I'm going to have with me. When I'm nature journaling in the field, I'm not going to have these color strips with me, and I'm probably not going to use them as a reference. So the way I have the one hanging on the wall behind me makes it seem like it's a reference, but when I'm out in the field nature journaling, I'm not looking at this kind of stuff. I'm looking at this. So the most important thing is learning where they are on your palette. That's one of the great things about the John Muir Laws palette is he has right here on the palette all of these tests with the name of them. And these are actual tests. These aren't from a printer. So they are spot on with the color. So when I'm watercoloring with his palette, sometimes, even though I have a lot of experience with this palette, sometimes I'll peek underneath just to make sure I know which color I'm using. So this thing in here, I'm not going to be using it as a reference, but maybe I will use it as a sort of flashcard and also just as a one-time opportunity. And Recovering Souls question is related and similar. One thing you could do instead of these sort of strips is you could just paint the color straight into here where the letters are on the map. And that's sort of like how the John Muir Laws one works, is this is almost like a map with the color and the name, and it's showing you what's inside of here. So you could color the map, you just wouldn't get this gradient. And it's nice to have the gradient and see how much variation, especially with some colors, there can be a huge variation depending on how watered down it is. So I'm gonna get my brush nice and clean for the next one. At this rate, we will take 2 more hours to finish this these test strips. No, just kidding. Okay, so now here's another yellow ochre. So I'm probably going to get rid of one of these because these are kind of redundant. Having 2 yellow ochres in one kit is a lot, but especially a kit that only has 21 spaces. But I had both of these from that visit to Rublev, so these were all free colors. And I think I was just giving these away for a while because I got these free colors and I was so fixated on my John Muir Laws palette and really wanted to just know one single palette. I didn't want to introduce more complexity because when you're nature journaling in the field, oops, I probably could have used a little more. When you're nature journaling in the field, it sometimes is really beneficial to just have one simple kit that you know very well. And so for several years, I didn't use any of these colors that they had given us on that visit. And I was just using my John Muir Laws palette. But now that I got the opportunity to test this art toolkit out that Maria sent me, this palette, I wanted to try some of the colors that it had. So I'll probably eliminate one of these. I'll decide which one I like better. Right now they look pretty much the same. My next color is Essential, and maybe this would be better off in one of these big pans. This is one of the primaries. So in my palette, quinacridone pink is one of the primaries, and you'll see how saturated it is. A primary just means you can't make that color by mixing other colors. So this color, that color up there could be made by mixing other colors, but this color could not be made by mixing anything else. It is a primary. It can only be pure by itself. It cannot be made by combining 2 other colors. And usually primaries are very saturated. So I feel like saturation is a slightly less abstract kind of concept than how primary something is. So you can see and you can feel when you look at this color that is very saturated. And that tends to be the case with the primary colors. So in this palette right here, that is one of my primaries. This is my other primary, and that is my third primary. So this magenta, this blue, and that yellow are my three primary colors. So technically, I should be able to mix most of these other colors if I had those three correct. So that is one you definitely want to have. Next, I will go to another green. So this is Perylene Green. This is one that I have from the John Muir Laws palette, so I'm somewhat familiar with. He really likes it because it is very dark in value, and sometimes it's just good to have several colors that are dark in value that are not just that are in all of the different areas. You can't get very dark value yellows, but a dark value green, a dark value brown. I mean, look at that. When it's pure pigment, it practically looks black. So good reminder there. Yes, you can get very dark with Perylene Green. Sometimes that's a really helpful thing to have. When I traveled to the some of the tributaries of the Amazon in Ecuador, I was running out of this Perylene Green color, and I knew that was unacceptable. So I actually went on this huge hunt because I wasn't at home. I was in San Diego, and I had to find this color from Daniel Smith the day before I was flying to Ecuador because it was empty in my palette. Really good for shadows in forests, obviously. Okay, I'm gonna have to switch to this water brush because my other one's running out of water. So this is gonna make it flow a little bit faster because this is a new water brush. So I put tape so that I know which one's which. All right, so that is Perylene Green. Now, Cascade Green is one I don't usually use. It is from Daniel Smith, and it's supposed to be very granulating. So I already talked about how staining a watercolor is. Granulation is another really important variable. On this paper that I'm using, you won't be able to see granulation very much, but granulation is just when a watercolor pigment separates. It creates an interesting pattern when it separates. And some of the watercolor pigments do this a lot, and some of them don't do it very much, and it's granulation. So in this chart here, you can kind of see it, but like, for example, this color right here called Maya Blue, see how heterogeneous it is? You can see a lot of variation within that color, whereas this chrome yellow primrose, it's all the same. Natural yellow oxide is also sort of granulating. See that texture? And this is one of the things that people really love about watercolor is granulation. And so, for example, there's blues that have tons of granulation, and there's blues that don't. Usually ultramarine blue has granulation, and there's certain things that benefit from granulation and other things that don't. So this is Cascade Green. It's supposed to be one of the more granulating greens. It's not in the John Muir Laws palette, but it is from Daniel Smith, and I wanted to experiment with it in this new watercolor palette. So I put in a bunch of colors in here that I'm used to and I depend upon, and then I put in some colors that are new and I want to experiment with. So the next one is going to be chromium oxide. This is one that I depend on a lot and is in my John Muir Laws palette. It's quite opaque. Looks like I got a little yellow ochre in there. It's rather opaque. And also kind of has a kind of almost looks as if I mixed buff titanium into a green. I use this sometimes for lichen, things like that. You can see the granulation is happening in the that Cascade Green. The Cascade Green is actually separating into several different colors in addition to the granulation. So you might be able to see this, but there's blue. There's blue in here that is sort of separating out from the green. And that creates one of those unpredictable factors in watercolor that can be very visually appealing to a lot of people. Okay. For people who are just showing up right now, I just wanted to remind you that if you were at Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference, there is still a 15% discount for stuff from the Art Toolkit website. We had a 15% discount like last week for people who who watched the Nature Journal show, but it ended this month. It ended in July. It was just for June. But if you were at Wild Wonder, you can still use the discount Wild Wonder, all caps, no spaces, as a discount. And if you're a student or an educator, you can always get a 15% discount from their website. And just to be completely transparent, I don't get any, besides this free palette that they sent me, I don't get any percentages. If you shop there, I don't get any income from that. And I'm not like sponsored by their company. I'm just testing it out. It was really nice that after I interviewed Maria, she sent me one of these for free to try out. But other than that, I'm not affiliated with them. So my next green is actually blue. This is Prussian blue. So this is a blue from Rublev. And this is a color that's not in my normal palette. Looks rather saturated there, but this color was talked about at Wild Wonder in the Skyscapitos class with Bethan. And I think that Roseanne Hansen might have mentioned it as well. Sort of more of a classic blue, ultramarine blue, and Prussian blue, as opposed to phthalo blue is a more newly developed color, the pigment. A lot of pigments haven't been around for very long. All right, so that's Prussian blue. Looks like there's some granulation there. Next, after Prussian blue, is one of my favorites from the palette that I currently use. This is Naphthalmide Maroon, a beautiful, beautiful color. I love when I get an opportunity to use this color in nature journaling. When I'm not nature journaling, I choose to use this color a lot. I wish I had some more clothing that was this color. It's sort of like what people would call a, what's that word? Well, maroon, but it's also sort of like almost burgundy, I guess, like a wine, maybe an eggplant. There's certain flowers you can find that have this color. Love this color. So I had to include it in this palette because I'm putting my Old Faithfuls in it. Yes, Recovering Soul is making a good point. They are chemicals. The colors are all chemicals. And the word chemical has a certain connotation in modern times, in our society, in our language. And all chemicals, everything is chemicals. And all of the pigments, even the really old ones, are chemicals. So a lot of these names are a reference to the chemicals that are used to produce that color. Some of them have common names, and a lot of the older ones are just based on the common names, or they're based on what type of mineral deposit it is made from, but they could all be described as chemicals. And a lot of the newer ones are using those chemical words instead of like the location words from where, like what mountain they came from. All right, so there's my Naphthalmide Maroon. Naphthalmide, also a chemical name. Some colors that you get, like such as my next one, are actually multiple pigments in one. This is something that the Rublev Colors doesn't do, but Daniel Smith and most other watercolor companies do. So this next one is called Bloodstone Genuine, a very great color. Love it. Beautiful. And it separates into multiple colors because it is made from multiple colors. And I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but look how dark it gets when it's almost a pure pigment. John Muir Laws recommends this one for shadows a lot of times. This one and Shadow Violet are some of his favorite colors. They're really beautiful. So this is Bloodstone Genuine. You can see it's granulating a little bit even on this paper that I'm using, which is rather smooth. And running out of time. That is Bloodstone Genuine, a beautiful one. And next is Serpentine Genuine. This is the green I use the most. So this is in my palette that I use every day, the John Muir Laws palette. And this is the green I use the most, especially in California. It's not too saturated. A lot of greens are so saturated that you can't use them straight out of the palette for painting any kind of plant because no plants look like that. And green is a dangerous color. A lot of times people see a plant or a tree and they immediately grab a green, and it's usually a way too saturated, terrible looking green. And they paint the plant immediately that color, and it doesn't look that good. Instead, grab Serpentine Genuine right off the bat, and you'll be good to go. Next one is another great color. This is the Monte Amiata Natural Sienna. So this one is named for a mountain. Monte means mountain in Italian, and this mountain, I guess, is called Amiata. And that is where this natural sienna comes from. Sienna is also the name of a place. So a lot of these old pigment names have to do with the place where that earth, usually it's a type of earth, was dug up and made into paint. Thanks for joining, Zephy. Have a good rest of your day. Zephy had to go. All right, so this is the Monte Amiata Natural Sienna. I use this all the time, especially in California. A lot of times our plants are this color when they dry up. Earth can be this color. The ground can be this color. So great color. That's why I put it in here, because I use it all the time. Next one is a new color for me. This is French Raw Sienna. So similar, another type of sienna, but from a different location, this time in France, actually. This is from Rublev, so I'm not familiar with this color yet. I'm probably going to end up choosing between one of these. I don't need two of these in my palette if they're very similar and I like one better. The French is looking browner so far. Since it's from Rublev, I know for sure that it's only one pigment. It's not a combination of pigments. Quite opaque, maybe heavier than the last one, maybe less golden. I'll probably choose one or the other for this palette. My current palette from John Muir Laws just has the Monte Amiata Natural Sienna, and this is the new French one. Okay, now I'm going into the one that Ivea has been wondering about. This is the manganese blue hue. Manganese is a mineral also. So this is the main blue that I have in this palette. That will be sort of my primary blue for mixing, and also just for skies. I'm going to try to get it really dark, but it's not as dark as the Prussian blue right off the bat. You can see that, which is fine for the sky. It's really easy to make the sky too dark. Sky is rarely dark relative to everything else in your painting. So this is a great blue for sky. I already know this blue, but I'm just going to get used to it in this new configuration. Manganese blue hue. All right, and then getting down to this bottom row. So these are larger pans. I forget the name of them on the website, but these are larger. So ideally, I would put the colors I'm using larger amounts of in there. You can see these ones are also quite a bit larger, and these are the really small ones. So you have options, but ideally for the bigger pans, use the colors that you use the most of. It could be the primaries. You know, I considered using these three for the primaries, but I realized that I probably don't use those the most. I know for sure I go through buff titanium really fast, so I made a whole one for buff titanium. But this is Shadow Violet. So Shadow Violet is one of my favorite colors, and it's my go-to sort of dark color or shadow color. Jack loves it as well. It's very similar to Bloodstone Genuine, so you might be able to just choose between one of these. However, it is colder, slightly colder of a color than Bloodstone Genuine, and it also separates out into several different colors the same way that Bloodstone Genuine does. One of my favorite colors for adding shadows or any darks. Really beautiful when mixed with Naphthimide Maroon. Okay, and then the last two colors are Quinacridone Gold, an amazing color. This one could probably replace the two Siennas. Quinacridone Gold is essential for California landscapes, but also essential for a lot of other things. There's a lot of different quinacridones. So quinacridone is one of these minerals or chemicals that can be turned into many different colors. And in this case, it's this golden color. And I really, really love this color. You can use it for many different things. It's not very dark, but you can use it for many different things. And as you water it down, it changes quite a bit. So this, as it's watered down, could be a field of grains. And for California, this watered down color I find is even better than these natural siennas for depicting our dry grass. Last but not least is buff titanium. And this one by itself might not look so special, but it's actually one of the colors that I use the most. It's quite opaque, so it's almost like a gouache. That means it would cover up any lines you have drawn underneath it. It also mixes well with other colors, and you can use it to create like pinks or mint green colors that require a little bit of an opaque color mixed into them. So if I combined this with quinacridone magenta, I could get a really nice pink color. So that's why I made so much of it here, because it's a really useful color and I go through it really fast. So wow, look at how much granulation there is on that one. And that must be the Bloodstone Genuine. Look at the granulation there is really fascinating to see. And you can see which colors have the granulation and which ones don't. So I recommend this at a bare minimum when you get a new palette. And I was talking the whole time, but it still only took me like maybe this would take you like 15 minutes to do. But at a bare minimum, when you get a new palette, do this. If you're going to do more, you can do one of these wheels where you see what your primaries are. Just start with the 3 primaries and see if you can mix all the way to the middle. This is an example. So this wheel was made just using 3 paints. Your whatever your magenta is, your yellow over here, and your blue. And then you just mix them to form the green, to form the orange, and to form the purples. And this is a great exercise to do, especially if you're trying to just use 3 primaries for everything. But even if you're not, even if you're using a palette like this, where you can carry more colors, I recommend that as a practice. So that is basically my experimentation with this palette. I'm going to quickly show you their website. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And show you their website, because I just want to give you a little bit of information about how they have their website organized. So this is their website, and these are the 3 toolkits that they have. So the one in the middle, the large art toolkit, that is the one that I'm using. And they have the information here about what palette will fit in and what size sketchbook will fit in. The Pocket Art Toolkit, I think, is totally sold out right now, and the A5 is sold out. But I think the large art toolkit doesn't seem very large to me, and I think it's actually going to be really good for me to try. I bet the Pocket one actually could fit in your pocket. So you can see down here that in addition to the size, you can choose what color trim it has. And whether or not it includes a palette, whether or not it is just the cover. So in mine, I asked for without palette because I already had the palette. But when you get it without palette, you also get those tools that I showed you. So you get the drawing pin, the water brush, the ruler, the sketchbook, all of that. So that's their basic stuff there. They also have, they have a ton of information about the art toolkits, obviously, but they also have these accessories. So let me just show you the accessories real quick. You can get these pans separate. So the mini pans were the ones that were at the top of my palette. You saw those. Those are the ones that were at the top of my palette, and they're the smallest. But you can also get the standard pans and the double pans. I had in mine mixing areas that were the extra large mixing pan and the regular mixing pan. And I don't think I had any of these large pans. I just had the double pans, the standard pans, and the mini pans. So you could buy extras of these. So going back to some of the questions in the chat, the live chat, you could have some of these. And if you decide you didn't like the mini pans or you didn't like one of those colors, like the Nicasio green, I could just take that out and save that somewhere and then later put in a different color. So there's a lot of modulation. Here are the Moleskine sketchbooks that they offer. So there's a variety of sizes that will fit any of the toolkits. That is the pocket mister that I showed you and the refill syringe. They offer the essential colors set, which is for mixing. So those are just primaries, but then they also offer Daniel Smith in the 15 milliliters. So that is a big thing of watercolor that'll last you forever. It's very expensive, especially depending on the color. It can vary. But if you get, like a full John Muir Laws watercolor palette and you get the colors in the 15 milliliters to match each one, you're going to be spending like almost $300 probably for the 30 some odd colors in his kit. She also has, gouache available. I don't recommend putting gouache in this palette. Probably not. And then look at all these brushes. I never use these travel brushes. I just use the regular water brushes. This brush pen, though, I would include that. I've just been testing that one out. That's that Pentel brush pen. Pretty cool. Jelly Roll, I don't like them as much as the Uniball Signo, but you've already heard me talk about that. And even though I use water brushes and don't need a collapsible water container, this one actually looks pretty cool. So if you are using traditional brushes, that would be a good one. So this is the Art Toolkit store. And remember, I just gave you several options for getting 15% off. Some of their stuff is sold out, but they're a great company, and I'm not getting anything from them for talking about their stuff. Great question about the Sharpie. I did not notice, Recovering Soul, I did not notice the Sharpie bleeding through. Good question. I did not notice it bleeding through, but that paper is really thick. Like I said, it's like 200 GSM or something like that. So just in case you didn't know, I did interview Maria, who's the owner of this company, not that long ago, and I'll post the link to that right here in the chat. Super cool interview. She's an amazing, badass woman doing some great stuff, and she has nature journaled on every continent in the world, including Antarctica, and she's nature journaled from like helicopters and done all kinds of stuff on icebergs. So definitely check out that interview. She's making some beautiful art as well. And I'm just also going to post the link to the sketchbook that I normally use. And I think that this sketchbook is great for nature journaling. It's from Stillman and Byrne. They're not giving me free stuff yet, but look at how many of their journals I've used, over like 50. So just to give you an idea of the paper that I've been testing on, that is the paper that I've been testing this watercolor on. Yours may vary, and it would probably be good for me to do another test where I use this moleskin and actually test it on here. But I have a surprise in store for you, because this new toolkit needs to go somewhere special. And you probably already know that I do some pretty extreme nature journaling even with this big kit. I've taken it lots of places, including wet places. And so just a little preview, I'm going to do an adventure with this toolkit, this art toolkit, and actually take it nature journaling somewhere a little bit more extreme, where I'll really get to test that out. So that'll be coming in the future. And there's a bunch of other really cool things coming in the future. Some of them are going to be special classes with some guests that you might already know, such as Mark Simmons, Liz Clayton Fuller. I might be doing a collaboration in the future with Bethan and Amaya, which would be really exciting, and a collaboration with David Lucas, who is an author, naturalist, and nature videographer. Some of those are going to be available for everybody, especially if you have clicked the notifications on YouTube, because some of these videos, they're only going to be available for a live. The recorded version is just going to be for my Patreon patrons. So just to plug that one last time, because I usually don't talk about it, some of these upcoming opportunities are just going to be available for Patreon patrons. And just for as little as $1 a month or $5 a month, you can support the Nature Journal Show and make these episodes possible and keep them ad-free, hopefully. And for $5 a month, you could even be part of our traveling journal, where we have a physical nature journal that gets mailed from one person to the next, and we all get to add to the pages. So that's going to be super fun. So check that out. If you haven't already, I know a lot of you already are patrons. And if you're not, make sure you at least get click the notification bell on YouTube so you see these whenever they come out. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining in. That was super fun. More episodes are coming soon. I got to go eat dinner with my girlfriend. Otherwise, I would stay here forever and test out more watercolor. But I hope this inspired all of you to go nature journaling on your own, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next weekend, whether you at least think about nature journaling in your daily life. That would be awesome. Thank you for joining in tonight and have a good rest of the evening. Bye.